Good morning and welcome to the joint EIT-EIC press briefing on how EU innovation support is powering solutions to tackle the COVID-19 pandemic. I'm Brian Maguire. I'll be leading you through this morning's event. The pandemic swept through Europe in March 2020, disrupting the European economy and citizens' lives. Since the start of the outbreak, the European Union has been at the forefront of supporting innovators to tackle the pandemic and the impact on societies. Now, 1 year on, we take a closer look at the innovators and entrepreneurs powering solutions to the pandemic and who were backed by the European Union's two most powerful innovation engines, the European Innovation Council and the European Institute for Innovation and Technology. Now, just before we hear from Commissioner Mariya Gabriel, let's watch the first of our short videos highlighting Europe's COVID-19 innovation research.
Hello, my name is Carolina Odile from Hospital Clinic in Barcelona, and I'm very happy to share with you our innovation program that is the creation of a virtual control center for COVID patients. And as you can see here from this screen, I can see all my patients hospitalized with COVID and have information in real time about the phenotype of these patients. That allows physicians to give the patients an early and personalized treatment. I would like to thank the European Organization and IT Health for their support for this project, and also to explain you that now this control center has been also constructed in Leuven, Belgium, Amsterdam, and in 2 different hospitals in Spain. Thank you very much.
So you can see we're not just talking about vaccines. The research innovation structure that will power Europe's recovery and help protect us from future pandemics is what we're talking about today. It's the support structures that are there, the testing regimes, the logistics that are needed simply to manage patients as well. So it's a much bigger view of what the pandemic recovery project really looks like. So now it's my pleasure to introduce Mariya Gabriel, European Commissioner for Innovation, Research, Culture, Education and Youth. Good morning, Commissioner.
Good morning, Brian. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. What a pleasure to be together with you in this wonderful event. I would like to start by saying thank you. Thanks to all our innovators, to our researchers, and thank you, of course, to my extraordinary teams from the European Innovation Council and the European Institute of Innovation and Technology. I think that this event is quite symbolic, because what we have learned during the crisis is that we need to anticipate, we need to ensure the right support in the right moment. And we need our innovators and researchers not only to give answers to the actual crisis, but to ensure a resilient future, to be more prepared for future crises. So allow me just to say again a few words, because now it's clear it is a bit more 1 year ago since the pandemic hit Europe, stronger than any other health crisis before in our near history. And nobody was prepared for a crisis like this one. But what was important was the capacity to react quickly. And everyone here, our innovators, are a brilliant example about this reactivity, about this capacity of very quick reactions. And that was on our side the main asset. Yes, we reacted immediately to the COVID-19 outbreak. We prioritized the research on and the development of safe and effective solutions to tackle the crisis and its aftermath. You know that since the beginning, the European Commission pledged to invest €1 billion from Horizon 2020 under the Coronavirus Global Response Initiative. And under this unprecedented and ambitious commitment, I must say that as European Union, we already invested €800 million into COVID-related research and innovation, and more will come in the coming months. But besides working on research and long-term solutions, we, together with my team, we were particularly determined to work with innovation ecosystems leaders and startups to develop short-term and medium-term solutions to be deployed in a few months to address not only the health area, but also the remote working and learning, as well as business continuity or social cohesion. So I think that since the beginning, our keyword that was anticipation, cooperation, and now coordination. And allow me here briefly to summarize the main actions that I took in this area of innovation in the very first months after the pandemic was declared. First, in a record time, we worked closely with the main innovation ecosystems leaders across Europe to organize what became the largest ever online hackathon under the coordination of the European Innovation Council. With more than 22,000 participants from 114 nationalities, EU versus virus came with more than 2,000 ideas during the 2 days long hackathon in April last year. I was really very glad to discover that in a very short time, we are able to propose 120 concrete projects, and they got support from corporate universities and the European Innovation Council. Now, I'm very glad that we have with us today Peter Lakatos, CEO of Entremo from Team Discover, who won the EIC EU versus Virus Hackathon and who has also been supported by the European Institute of Innovation and Technology. Second, I would like to underline here the important role of the EIT, because in May 2020, the EIT mobilized an additional budget of 60 million euros to launch its crisis response initiative. 207 innovative projects and ventures from 32 countries have benefited from this initiative. And among them, David Schmelzeisen is with us today. David is the co-founder of Impact Products, a startup resulting from the project Virus Shield, supported by the EIT. And this startup has created alternative high-performance fabric that allows to produce face masks that are highly efficient while being washable, reusable, and cheap. And third, with the European Innovation Council, again in 2020, with our accelerator pilot project, we opened a dedicated call that resulted in 148 million euros invested in 36 startups and SMEs coming from 16 countries. And those companies reacted to an unprecedented need for breakthrough innovations in COVID-19 related to testing, diagnostic, or prevention. And one of them, Project Bright, today represented by Odile Duvaux, the CEO of the company Xenothera, is developing treatments for COVID-19 patients. So I'm really very glad that together with us today, we have a brilliant example of our capacity to innovate, to propose solutions, and to see how the money that is invested in research innovation, that's a strategic investment in our future and in our capacity to face future crises. So I'm really very proud that beyond the examples I have singled out, so many European companies, researchers, and innovators have received European funding to develop a range of solutions to tackle COVID-19. Still, we must further boost investment in innovation to accelerate the pace at which our economy and society will recover in the coming months and years. And today, last message, it's an important day for the future of the European policy of innovation, because for the first time, the EIC and the EIT have organized a joint event to showcase how they can both work together in a complementary way, with the EIT building ecosystems for all kinds of stakeholders across the whole European Union, and the EIC funding deep tech startups in Series A. Together, they can ensure European tech sovereignty, reduce innovation divide across Europe, and increase the role of women in European startups. All these objectives are at the center of our European innovation area that will come essential for the green and digital recovery. So again, what I would like to say is a big thank you to our innovators. Thank you very much for your commitment, for your engagement, for your vision. And allow me just to finish by saying that now we are witnessing concrete examples of the benefits of our program Horizon 2020 investing in research and innovation. But we'll launch the new work program under Horizon Europe in the coming weeks. And you know that now with the reinforced budget, we somehow have the world's biggest research and innovation program in the world. And I think that as European Union, we have risen to the challenge. Now we have tools, we have people, we have talents. It's really time to continue to cooperate, to coordinate, and to popularize. That's my wish, that today we all can see what that means excellence for Europe, what that means concrete benefits for our citizens. Thank you very much.
Commissioner Gabriel, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us this morning, and as always, such a clear and positive message, and in a week which has had the spotlight on the success of women. It's clear that there's more work to be done, and the capacity is there to do it in the side of innovation as well. So thank you for that. And now, just before we meet our panelists this morning, as the Commissioner has highlighted, we're going to see the second of our short videos this morning.
Severely ill COVID-19 patients suffer from multi-organ failure. That means not only the lung is affected, but also the kidneys, the liver, and the heart. Current clinical practice is to attach the patient for each failing organ to one single device. That results not only in a high workload and high cost, but also a high complexity, often resulting in risk of fatal errors. Lakatos has developed the Atlas device, the first 4-in-1 therapy, supporting the lungs, the liver, the kidney, and a fast blood pH correction, which is often necessary in severely ill patients. Clinical data shows that Atlas improves survival from 10% up to 50%. These results have also been confirmed in COVID-19 patients. In 2020, we received funding from the European Innovation Council for our patient registry to further increase the medical evidence of the Atlas benefits, and funding for our development activities to further improve the ease of use and to make the product available in additional European countries. Together, we can fight the virus and save lives.
As I said earlier, it's not just about fighting the virus with the vaccine. There are multiple layers of health initiatives which are needed to sustain the health of our society, but also to power the innovation for the recovery. And there are many other dynamics that come out of this research as well. It's not just in the healthcare side. So this morning we have our three innovators who we're going to meet in just a second. They're going to each have a 60-second pitch, and they'll tell you about their projects and their companies. And then we'll have a short discussion with the three innovators. After that, we will open the floor to journalists for a Q&A. You can use the Q&A button at the bottom and send your questions there. You don't have to wait until the Q&A. Our team will pay attention even if something occurs to you during the panel discussion. We'll take that as soon as we can. And we'll also be joined by a representative from the EIT and from the EIC as well for the Q&A session as well. So 60 seconds to each of our innovators. First up is Odile Duvaux from France, and the Commissioner already introduced your bio, and your company is Xenothera. Odile, the floor is yours, 60 seconds.
Hello, everybody. So Xenothera is a company that was started 7 years ago, and that's built on a technology that is patented, which is a technology of polyclonal antibodies which are innovative. Our vision is to bring innovative treatments to patients. And indeed, we have discovered that our technology was very valuable for patients in viral infections since 2015. So we were ready to react very quickly last year, and we launched a new antibody, a new treatment for patients suffering from COVID-19. And we were indeed the first antibody in the world to be ready for clinic by May 2020, even before American people. So we got support from the EU, that allowed us to go very quickly to clinic. And today we are in phase 2 and phase 3 trials in Europe for more than 1,000 patients. So our innovation, XAV19, here it is. It's a new antibody that will cover the needs for patients suffering for early and moderate COVID-19, and it's complementary from vaccines. I hope that we will be one of the European champions and probably one of the worldwide leaders in this market, together with all other products that we are developing aside. Thank you.
Odile, thank you so much. I'll hear more about that in just a moment as well. Our next innovator, Peter Lakatos, he's from Hungary, and Peter is CEO of Entremo. Peter, how are you? There we go. Yep. 60 seconds, all yours.
Good morning, everyone. I am Peter Lakatos, CEO of Entremo. We are developing a remote monitoring device that patients in non-intensive hospital care can wear on their wrists constantly, and we measure their most important vital signs like body temperature, heart rate, oxygen saturation, and respiratory rate. We then make this data available to the staff through our digital dashboard, and they are able to oversee far more patients this way and react to deteriorating cases instantly. Our journey started at the EU versus Virus hackathon organized by the EIC in April 2020. We were the overall winners of the healthcare category, and this has propelled us to take part in the EIT Digital Innovation activity as well, where we have received funding together with 4 partner companies to make our idea a reality. And we are now at the phase that we are making our devices available for testing in Hungarian institutions.
Excellent. Thank you, Peter. And thirdly, we have David Schmelzeisen from Germany. He's the co-founder of Impact Products and Project ViruShield. How are you, David?
Yeah, thanks for the kind introduction. My name is David. I'm co-founder of Upper Hand, actually, so a brand of Impact Products. And what we saw actually very early on in this crisis, so last year in April, that these kind of masks are very uncomfortable, super difficult to breathe through. And at the same time, once I've used them, I never know what to do with it. So we thought, okay, we need a better product. And I teamed up with FU Berlin, a hygiene specialist, who was able to test all our materials with SARS-CoV-2 in a high security lab. And then we had the Institute for Textile Technology in Aachen to develop a really, really great nanofilter. And now we came up with a mask that comes in 4 sizes and different colors. And actually what is really great about it is that you can wash it easily because it has a micro nanofilter that doesn't need electrostatic effects. And the surface cleans itself, and it's proven to inactivate SARS-CoV-2, as we have shown in trials with the lab in Berlin. And yeah, it's available on the market since last year in end of October. We have sold, I think, over 20,000 of these now. We were expanding to all European markets early this year. And we are looking forward to collaborate with any kind of institution. We have just passed all tests for medical devices and are right now going into tests for FFP2.
Thank you. Thank you, David. Thank you to Peter and Odile as well. Odile, let's start with you. Commissioner was highlighting the fact that EU responded quickly, but you were actually in a different position. You repurposed a project which you've been carrying out since 2015 as well. You clearly saw this not just as a challenge, but as a huge opportunity. And what interests me is the transferable technology and the lessons that can be learned for Europe. As an innovator, as an entrepreneur, how did you identify this market so quickly and repurpose what you were doing?
Well, to be clear, when we discovered the properties of our antibodies against viruses, we decided to choose a strategic target. And in fact, in 2015, we decided that we should focus on coronaviruses. So why? Because there had been already several epidemias, not so big, obviously, that were very dangerous and with a higher mortality rate. So we were convinced that our product could be very interesting. So this is why we were ready, because we had already developed another product in clinic, to react very quickly. But what's interesting, and I liked what Commissioner said about anticipation, is that in these cases, when you are an SME, you need to decide very quickly to allocate resources on a new field, because in fact, we were not fully focused on coronaviruses at this time in early 2020. So the idea was that we would need really strong support from external people, especially EU, because we really needed to be supported, especially financially, so that we could take risk and not threatening the life of the company. And in fact, the reactivity of EU was, well, I would say quite a challenge and quite interesting, because we got an agreement for financement in less than 3 months, which is absolutely wonderful. And it allowed us to take risk and to take financial risk to, especially to produce the first GMP batches of our product.
Excellent. Thank you. And just let me ask Peter as well, your journey is different than Odile's, but how did you interact with the EU? Was it just, was the kickoff point the hackathon, or what was your story?
Not just the hackathon. So after the versus virus, we also participated in the Matchathon event, which focused on connecting the ideas with corporations and institutions to further boost the possibilities and opportunities. So it wasn't just a 2-day competition, but more like, an innovation hub that brought together the entrepreneurs of Europe, really. And ever since, it's an ongoing process, and we are in close collaboration with many institutions that we've met at the hackathon. So I'd say it's a pretty good collaboration.
Do you see a shift in culture? You know, this was the hackathon was a fairly quick response to come up with clear solutions, and there was no pretending that we had all the answers for this as well. So do you think this shifts the innovation culture and how this was handled?
I see a shift in the remoteness of all of it, obviously. Before this, it was rare that we would interact with so many other international companies from other regions or even continents. So for example, we've had multiple discussions with like Latin American consortiums as well. And before the virus, that wouldn't be the case, really. They wouldn't find us. Okay.
David, you're creating a different product again. It's less tech focused and more tangible in a sense. What has the EU done? How have you benefited from the support that you've received?
So for us, it was super important actually to get this kind of support, because we work closely together with mainly 2 university labs. So one been based in Aachen and the other one been based in Berlin. And for them, it's way easier to work on a funding basis. So us as a startup and company coming out of one of these labs, it's more easier to acquire external funding than for the universities. And that was just great that EIT was so fast. So I've never seen anything close to this. I've done a lot of funding rounds for universities over the past 5 years while doing my PhD. And I think this time it took only 2 weeks for them to review our proposal and come back to us with a positive funding decision. And this was just incredible and helped us a lot to actually build a product within 3 months. So we started really from scratch in April and had a first product in, I think, in July. So this was just being enabled by EIT and the fast reaction.
So clearly the institutions have learned from this as well. We don't normally expect this kind of speed. There's a lot of process and paperwork to go through, and the speed you describe is pretty extraordinary in any terms, in any public sector terms. So what do you think changed? Why do you think the mentality shifted in this way? And do you think we can continue this way to solve problems and react to other challenges that we have? David?
Yeah, I think it was great that first the whole call was launched online, and it was pretty briefly, and you have like several steps to go through. Usually you are buried in paperwork until you have your idea, because I mean the main thing for a reviewer is like the key idea in the team, and that was done just perfectly online. And then I think there was a big trust actually from EIT towards the supported companies, because for us, for example, we didn't have the main company receiving the funding when we actually got the first funding decision. So we had to build a company within 2 weeks to be able to actually get the funding. And all of this was done in a very, very short dialogue together with EIT Health, and they were super helpful and easy on this, and wouldn't been possible to do this.
Thank you. Odile.
Yeah, I wanted to say that I think it's interesting that we've been working in a sort of a crisis mode since almost 1 year, but obviously we cannot stay in such a stage because it's too exhausting and not really too difficult. However, I think we have big learnings to take from this period, and one of the big learnings we have to take is that in some cases, taking risks is saving time, and saving time is also saving money. If we talk about money, obviously, it's also hopefully saving lives from people who are sick. But I think this attitude from EU has really to be kept in some cases, and especially if we want to anticipate. We all knew that the pandemic could happen. It did happen, in fact. And there will be others, unfortunately. So the way we learned to react quickly should really be now embedded in our ways of working, so that both us as startups and also institutions could keep the ability to react. I give an example. When you apply to a financing, you need to put a pitch, a PowerPoint presentation, and this cannot be changed. And 3 months later, you are supposed to stick to this presentation. It doesn't make sense when you are in a crisis mode. Obviously, 2 months later, everything has changed. So in such a very detailed thing, it's an illustration on how we can change. Obviously, we changed the presentation, and it was not a problem at all, and we got the financing. I hope I am making myself clear.
Yes, perfectly. Let me bring this to Peter and then back to David as well. Peter, you, I guess, thrive under the pressure of the challenge as well. The coders, those who are involved in this kind of design, enjoy the intensity perhaps, and maybe it's not sustainable, as Odile says, to stay in permanent crisis mode. But do you see the same learning curve as well, or how do you anticipate that you will change as a company in terms of your innovative reach, and what do you expect from the institutions as well in terms of their capacity to respond again quickly when needed?
Well, I agree with Odile and David on the benefits of the fastness that the institutions showcased. We can see now that this quick response actions were working, so it's time to adapt, I guess, and improve even more. In our case, it was done in a period of 2 weeks. So, for example, we had to find our partners from 2 different countries in just 2 weeks, and we also heavily relied upon the EIT network to find these partners through our previous connections, and also on the support of the local EIT digital hub here in Budapest, where I'm also sitting at the moment. And regarding Entremo and the future, we do thrive under pressure, as you said. So our November and December were quite intense months, also having lockdowns in Hungary, so we had nothing else to do than just work. And we are prepared to adapt any way that we need to. We also hope that the COVID pandemic will pass as soon as possible, and with the rise and of the vaccinations, we hope that it will go smoothly. So we are already preparing to move beyond COVID and also address use cases that are irrelevant of COVID and are present in regular terms and times as well.
Okay, I hope that when the restaurants open, the innovation doesn't stop there in Hungary, Peter. David, just a quick comment from each of you on the global capacity as well. You're building products and services which can be deployed globally now as well. How do you see your global reach, David?
I think there we teamed up very early on through our network globally. So we have production ready in Korea and also in Bangladesh, but in a really, really nice facility in Vietnam and Sri Lanka. So it's no problem actually to scale this business up. Otherwise, at the moment, we are really focusing on Europe. So, I mean, we want to be always close to the market. So what we learned here is that we also got a lot of speed through being able to source all our materials and all the know-how here in Europe. So we have production in Portugal, but also in Romania, in Germany. We have all of this here. And this is actually how we would also scale globally, actually to always source locally for the place where we want to sell. So if it's Asia, then it's going to be Korea. And if it's the US or India, then it's going to be around Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, or Honduras.
Thank you. Odile, you made no attempt to hide your global ambition in your opening pitch. What's next?
Yeah, well, we are ready to address the whole European market in 2022. So now we all convinced that there will be need for vaccines and treatments. So we will be ready to cover the European market in 2022 and the world market from 2023. So our ambition is to scale up very quickly our production, considering we have one of the most promising treatments today. And this scale-up is going to be mostly done in Europe because it's very different. Our product is high value and in small scale, so you can transport it easily. So we'll cover the world market through mainly manufacturing and bioproduction that we make in Europe. So now we have already installed 3 sites of production in France, Belgium, and we are scaling up quickly, and we will be helped for this by current capital increase.
Okay, thank you. Peter, we're going to go to Q&A in just a second, so remind our journalists to prepare their questions and start sending those in. Peter, there's not a hospital healthcare system in the world that doesn't need a dashboard like yours, where there's a greater efficiency, where the line of sight is easier to manage patient care. Your global ambitions are small?
I agree, it's a global problem, although we are making one step at a time. So we are doing the technological validation here in Hungarian institutions. Afterwards, our target market is Western European countries in the first wave. So Netherlands, Scandinavia, these are countries we also lived in and studied in. So we also have a few connections there and also partners. Stepping into the US markets, that's a bit more on the in the long-term goals. Getting FDA approval is also a longer process. So first we are focusing on Europe. Okay, thank you. We're going to start the Q&A now, and our journalists who are participating, they can send the questions to the Q&A, and I will put those to the panelists and to our EIT and EIC representatives as well. So let me just introduce Keith Sekera. He's the EIC Head of Unit for Governance and Coordination. Keith, how are you? Good to see you. There's Keith. And we also have Adam Rotenbacher. He's the EIT Head of Director's Office as well. Good to see you as well, Adam. We just wait for our kickoff questions coming in. Keith, let me ask you, you've been praised, frankly, by the innovators here for the speed of reaction. What lessons did you learn? Why did you take the risk to go beyond what would be described as business as usual in terms of process?
No, thanks. I mean, it's great to have the feedback, and we've been making huge efforts to speed things up. COVID, we went faster than we've ever done before, as Odile was saying. I mean, we had proposals coming in within a matter of days. We were taking decisions in weeks, and we were getting the money on the ground in a couple of months. So, but the thing I would say about this is we have realized this is not just something for a crisis. Technologies move incredibly fast, innovations move incredibly fast. So we will be putting this into all of our processes. We're launching the full European Innovation Council very soon, and it will be about the applications, but it will also be about the projects as they continue, that we should be flexible to pivot, to bring this agility to all of our funding. So this is a huge effort for us, and it's great that it's really helped in the current crisis, but it will be something that will be continuing.
Excellent. Adam, we have a question as well from Tanya. We'll bring this in just a second. If there's a particular question you want to address to a specific person, please address that, highlight that in the question as well, and we'll direct it accordingly. Adam, from the EIT side, what did you learn? Why did you respond so quickly? Same reasons as Keith, or were you waiting for this opportunity?
So thank you very much for having me today. So actually, as Commissioner Gabriel also said, the EIT in general and the entire EIT community is a very agile instrument. We address societal challenges, and thereby we can react also quickly to market needs. And also very happy to hear the testimonials from David and Peter that within 2 weeks, actually, they managed to receive a positive funding decision. So I think this is something that generally characterizes the EIT community. And we want to be as agile and as flexible and fast in the future as well.
And just on this, are you doing an evaluation of how the lessons learned from this so that it can be really deployed in future projects?
Definitely, this was sort of a pilot exercise triggered by the crisis last year, the EIT Crisis Response Initiative, and this is something that we learn from and we will integrate in our main processes for funding EIT knowledge and innovation communities in the future to make sure that this agility remains.
Okay, thank you. Odile, maybe you want to have a go at this first question. So Tanya, I'm not sure which agency she's from. Also, if you can put your agency in, it'd be helpful. And she asked, how did EU funding compare combined with national funding in the past year for your project? And how has that coordination changed compared to previous decades? She says she's particularly interested in the French case. So national funding, EU funding, how does this divide up and how has the process changed?
Well, I must say that the national funding has been much more, quicker and much higher than the EU funding. So to be clear, EU funding was less than 20% of what we needed, and the rest was provided by national funding. So I think, I have no opinion about whether this is okay or not. It's just a fact, and we deal with it. And what's important is that EU is probably providing a long-term, mid-term and long-term support also. And my concern today is that EU is going to follow the project by, there is ordering treatments for EU citizens. That could be an opportunity because financing innovation is something, but then staying aside the startups to bring them to become champions is also something necessary, and we really need EU support for this aspect. National support will not be sufficient.
Okay, Keith, you're in the Department of Scaling Up. So how does the national funding and the EU funding pair? How does this work together?
So I think what we've learned and what we can do at European level is to really focus on those innovations which are special at European level and to focus on the scale up. I think Europe has as many startups as the US, but when you look at scale ups, this has been far fewer. So we're really focusing on the companies that have the potential to scale up. And we're also scaling up our support in terms of the level of our funding and the other support and the new links we have with the EIT to really help with the non-financial support as well. So we see that our focus on the real kind of technological innovation breakthroughs and providing the support to scale up at European and then global levels as well. And this is really what we see as our job.
Great, thank you. Quick comment from Peter and David on national EU funding, how this works together. What's your experience, Peter?
Well, we haven't had national funding so far, so I don't really have a take on that.
It's diplomatic. Okay, David?
Yeah, I mean, for us, so I've done a lot in national funding over the last 5 years, and we've actually applied for some of the new technologies that we want to introduce for national funding, and it's way slower, unfortunately. So I'm right now waiting for an approval of a project that we submitted last year in October, and I think I won't have an approval until June of this year. So that's, I mean, we have a pre-phase approval, but that's typical for Germany, actually, that there are a lot of instruments and they are very well placed, but it takes a lot of time until actually money flows. And that's our problem currently.
Okay, thank you. Adam, you've done what is often the key criticism of Brussels, and that things are too slow, they move too slowly, and you've absolutely turned it on its head this time as well. The national capacity maybe hasn't been so responsible all the way through. Odile's case being the exception, it seems. So how do you see the pairing here? How do you partner? How do you measure what's needed by comparison with the national ability to fund and to support?
Yeah, thank you. That's a very good question. And I would like to mention another aspect that Keith already hinted at, and it's the non-financial support. So I think what we can also provide beyond the funding is the support of the ecosystem. So Peter mentioned that they managed to find partners from other countries within the EIT network, so partners with which they can collaborate and improve the product. And also all of you mentioned the importance to look globally and also at the European level. And this is another aspect where the EIT community can help. So it can help innovators and entrepreneurs enter new markets, find new customers. So I think this is equally important beyond the funding that is provided. And probably this is something that the national funding or a national scheme cannot really provide, the benefits of a pan-European ecosystem. So I would just add this thought.
Okay, another question just specifically for Adam and for Keith this time. Paula Lem asks, will the emphasis on speed continue in future EIT calls? And do they anticipate similar 2-week calls in non-pandemic times? That's Paula from Research Europe. Keith, you're going to keep going with that. I know the general lesson's been learned and you want to apply this speed of reaction, but do you anticipate similar 2-week calls in non-pandemic times?
Yes, we do. We're actually at Commissioner Gabriel will be launching the full European Innovation Council. We've been in pilot so far, but under Horizon Europe, we now have the legislation to establish the European Innovation Council. And we've learned a lot from this and we will go further. So at the moment, you have to wait for a deadline to apply. What we'll be doing in the future is to say you can apply anytime. You'll get a response within weeks. But this is a major change for us that you can just apply anytime, because we realize, for innovators, it's not very helpful to have to wait for a certain date to make their applications. So I think we're going even further than we are at the moment. It's not just maintaining what we've done during the crisis.
Thank you. Adam.
Yes, actually, in the case of the EIT community, the calls for new projects and new startups are done and implemented by the knowledge and innovation communities, so on the ground. And they also have various approaches, similar to what Keith mentioned, calls that are open throughout the year and calls with very short deadlines, and then with a very rapid process of evaluation by experts and quick funding decision. So we will continue to do that in the future as well.
Odile, you're nodding in approval there that we can't wait for funding to be announced somewhere down the year when we have a bright idea today. Is this exactly what you need to ensure that you have a pipeline of innovation which is timely and not just a good idea?
Well, we are, it's strange because since 1 year, for the last year, we have been facing something very different from what had been done before in health in general. Well, the competition is really focusing on supply. This means that all the states in the world are competitive to get vaccines, treatments, access to things that are in scarcity. When you report them to the needs of the citizens. So I think EU is exactly in the same case, and we've been seeing what happened for vaccines, and this means that all states have been buying things before the efficacy was proven. So it's very strange because health products, the Pfizer, all products had been sold before it was sure that they were, or pre-sold, before it was really sure they were efficient. So we are exactly at this stage at Xenothera. We have a product that has, I would say, 99% chance of being efficient. And we need to, we are facing the fact that people want to buy it. And today we are in this stage where we want to discuss with EU because we don't want to sell it to other countries having been supported by EU since the beginning. So this is a very specific case, but it's exactly the case where we are today at the center.
Thank you. We have another question from Quintin Iris, so to bring it in just a second. David, Peter, on the same topic here about the permanently open opportunity to pitch and for calls which can be responded to quickly. Does this change your mindset about how you develop products, that you don't have to wait for a particular season or a particular moment, but that when you have the idea, you can run with it and you can try to get the support immediately? David.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea from the European Union or EIC, EIT here. In Germany, actually, it's done this way. So we have a very, very successful program, which is called CIM, which is a typical SME program, unfortunately not yet for startups, but it's a continuous program. You usually get funding within 2 to 3 months and you can apply at any time. And it's the most successful funding program that I've ever seen. And I think, yeah, that would be really great to see this on European level and also to see it for startups. So that was the big difference that we saw, that actually the European Union pretty much gave trust in us without having a company yet. So we were not able to show any balance sheets. It's just not possible if you are just funding the company. And this was just really, really great. And I would like to see this to grow in the future.
Thank you, Peter.
I also agree that it's great news. Not having to wait an entire year until you can apply with an idea. I would still keep the deadlines just to force us to do the submissions, because it's easier if there's a force. And I agree that having a leap of faith towards these new ideas is hopefully will be rewarding. We also didn't have a company registered, so we were still just out of the competition. So basically we had only the idea and the team, but still EIT Digital and the EIT believed in us, and I hope that, I mean, they were right because we did finish the prototype, but I would love to see such opportunities come in the future again.
Nothing inspires journalists quite like a pending deadline, I can tell you. Quintin, I'm sure, will agree. Quintin Aris from News Tank is a question for the EIC. So, Keith, what's happening to the program managers of the EIC? Are they all appointed?
You know, we for those of you who don't know, we one of our new approaches in the EIC, where we've learned from institutes like DARPA and BARDA in the US, is to have program managers that are not just sort of checking the cost statements of projects, but really experts in their field that can help the innovators get to the market, to build the networks. So in the pilot phase, we have recruited 4 program managers to start testing out this approach. When we launch the full European Innovation Council that Commissioner Gabriel will be doing very soon, we will have additional recruitments of program managers. So this will be coming in 2021, where we'll look for other areas of technology which are exciting for Europe and where we can get these kind of very high profile individuals to really help us make the best impact from the funding.
Okay. And Commissioner Gabriel, if you want to jump in at any point, just to open your mic and feel free. And yes, you've got your hand raised. Perfect. Off you go.
Well, I would like really just to underline, because answers are perfectly perfect, and I would like just to summarize somehow, because there is some very important elements that all our speakers already raised on the question on the complementarity with national funds, because I think that this question is extremely important, especially because now we have a real momentum with the national strategies of our member states and the resilience and recovery facility. So for my side, that will be one of the main objectives, to have these synergies with our member states, at the same time to see how within our Horizon Europe program we can strengthen them and make them more impactful. By the way, when we talk about national schemes, what we already know is that in the countries where these schemes are here, that are countries that invested a lot already in innovation in research during the previous years. That's why it's so important to continue to address the R&I divide, the public investment in this at national level, and to have coherence with the European instruments. And I would like to say again that what here we all witness is that we learned a lot from this crisis, because we need to preserve the speed. I think that definitely that's a very good idea, that you can be a candidate in every time, because we can't say that new technologies are evolving so rapidly at the same time not to adapt our own instruments, procedures, and attitude. And finally, what I'd like to underline is how important it is to have this strengthened cooperation between EIT and EIC, because you can see EIT have a very strong added value with the decentralized approach, with an ecosystem approach. But at the same time, when we have promising company that already was supported by EIT, it's important that immediately EIC can be there in the right moment to scale up, to ensure access to markets, and to be really sure that will not stop. It's a very, very crucial stage when a product or service is developed. So I think that here we have all very encouraging messages. And what will be important is, of course, now with the new programs that will be launched 18th of March, to be sure that all these good experiences that you have, that you shared with us, will manage to promote them with new tools in order to have other innovators and to show our European leadership in this field.
Thank you. Just to our journalists, you have 1 minute to pitch another question, and otherwise you need to follow up afterwards with the press team directly as well. And okay, we have one more as well. Odile, you want to ask this question? Go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to know whether the program managers that have been announced by Keith will benefit to companies like us who have already been funded, because I think it's a very, very important idea to have people that can get along to the companies during the time. So this is a question for Keith, if you have time.
Okay. Keith, EIT or EIC, Odile? Which was it? Sorry.
EIT, sorry.
EIT, sorry, Adam.
Yeah.
Adam, go ahead.
I think it is actually for Keith. Yeah.
No, I think this is the EIC, and the answer, Odile, is yes. I mean, the program managers will be looking at the new funding, but they'll also be looking to work with the portfolio of companies that we're already supporting. We have 2 in the health area. Yes, they're there to support you, to do the networking. So absolutely yes.
Thank you. Very, very good.
Thank you. Okay, if Commissioner Gabriel doesn't mind, I'm going to ask you to do like 60-second wrap up in just a moment. Rather than me have the final word when you're here, why not? And David and Peter and Odile, just 30 seconds, your impression from this pandemic response. What's your takeaway from this in terms of EIT, EIC, and also your own learning experience? What's the key message that you want to get across today, David?
Yeah, so I would say it was a great and speedy start, and now we need somehow to also do the acceleration phase and growing phase, and that would be great to get support again from EIC or EIT. And the second point is definitely regulations. I mean, European regulations, we see it now, we are entering with a medical product into a new regulation, which is starting in May, which is for a startup with 6 people, it's quite challenging to go into it, and that's also something where we could use a lot of help, and it would really be great to continue our great work with EIT and EIC there.
Thank you. Peter, your final pitch.
So they do say that hard times bring about change, and I completely agree with that, and I tend to see the optimistic side always. So it was great to see the level of quickness and that the transformation could happen, and how much EIC and the EIT supported starting ventures and startups. So even the EU versus virus, it was the biggest that we've ever seen and ever took part in. And for us, it was a life-changing experience. So I do hope that this was not just a crisis response, but it also, the trend continues to go on for the next 10, 20, I don't know how many years.
Thank you. Excellent. Odile.
Well, I would say that having built on the national level, I am very proud and very interested to be also at the EU level, because when you want to be a global player, you really need to be at European level, because otherwise you are nothing. So thanks to European Union. Second, I would say that acceleration is also an exciting mode that allows us to overcome some obstacles that cannot be tackled otherwise. So let's think and consider that being quick is also, in some cases, the only way to go on and to move forward. So I would say speed is a real issue that we all need to keep in mind. So last, obviously, I hope we can solve the problem for patients suffering from COVID-19 with part of the solution.
Thank you, Odile. And last word, Commissioner Gabriel.
Well, I will be very brief. Preserve your ecosystem and impact-oriented approach. Anticipate, accelerate, build synergies, and yes, dare to be a global European leader.
Yeah.
Perfect. Excellent. Thank you so much. And thank you to all our panelists, David, Peter, and Odile this morning, also to Adam and Keith for the participation today, and for all the journalists who have taken the time to be with us as well. I know you'll have some follow-up as well with the press team directly as well. And to Commissioner Gabriel, thanks for taking the time and spending it with us this morning as well. To all the team you didn't see behind the scenes, we appreciate all their contribution for the production this morning as well. I wish you a good day. I'm Brian Maguire.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye.